Gene, do you ever lie? You ever lie to people?
I've been known to lie.
I lied today, Gene.
Oh.
I lied to a dental hygienist. How long has it been since your last cleaning? Uh,
6 months? No.
why don't you guess as you're doing this, and I'll
Yeah.
tell you. And I will say, I will definitely, kids, take care of your teeth. Do it.
It's important.
It's going to be in the Squid Games. So,
Nice. I almost played the wrong one. That's why it took me a second.
what did you almost play? You
I'm in
almost
a
played
weird
your
one.
one for Warrior Mindset.
No, it's like this countdown video. It's a minute and a half long. I'm like, that'd be a long countdown.
Oh my God.
It
That
starts
would
like
be
dook, dook,
that
dook.
would be painful.
We have to wait for a while.
Gene, how have you been? This is a rare Wednesday recording,
Mm,
even though everybody's watching on Friday because we just got back from DPM Summit. And I got sucked into the vortex of DPM Summit. We haven't really gotten to connect. How are you?
good. Good.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
don't really I don't really care.
yeah. It's a rhetorical question.
I'm kidding. I'm interested. How are you,
I'm about to tell you now.
Gene?
I'm good. I'm good.
Are
It's
we
Wednesday.
doing this?
It's
You have coffee. I don't have coffee because I just came from the dentist. But they did give me a damn Snickers bar.
what?
Happy Halloween. I'm like,
Mm-mm.
is this a trick?
Mm,
It wasn't a trick.
mm.
Gene, we are getting more and more people emailing us. Isn't that cool?
That's incredible.
Yeah. A lot of them just say, please stop. But we did have one that came in from Hans Bjortel. Hans has been a member for a long time, has come to a couple of camps and been at owner summits and all this kind of stuff. And he said something, and you mentioned it when we were talking. A lot of people don't know the nGen story.
Right.
He gets referenced right here. Here's what Hans said. Hope all's really well. Really enjoying the Bureau Digital podcast. Want to drop a topic request in the suggestion box. And anybody listening, you can do this as well. We would appreciate it because, quite frankly, we just never know what we're going to talk about. Your experiences with nGen come up a lot in intriguing ways, but we never get the full 3-act story. From the tidbits that are dropped, I know it's a good one. I'd love to hear all about. And then he lists a series of questions. So I just want to say thanks to Hans because Lord knows I love talking about myself.
God.
And now it's framed in a way where somebody else is asking.
Thanks a
And
lot, Hans.
I gotta make Gene ask the questions.
Just wait till I meet you, Hans.
He's kind of big.
That's fine. I don't care. Well, here's the thing, though, Hans. If you would have been a real long-time listener, you would have tuned into a show we had called BizCraft,
Gene, are
where
you?
Carl constantly talked about himself.
You don't even know my name. You call me Kyle.
They don't know your name either.
Hans is a member in good standing, Gene Crawford.
Good.
You back down.
Well, let's talk about it, man. Let's go through the thing, and if it takes more than one episode, I'm down with that.
He thinks it's going to be an episode out of each act, beginning, middle, and end.
Sorry to break it to you, Hans.
Would love to hear the same about Gene's adventures as well.
It's a simple story.
It's a simple story. And he thinks that's going to be a 6 episode. This is going to take forever.
Good job, Kyle.
6 episode package that's going to win a potty award, which I thought even when I read it, I thought it was like potty award. Like people listen to this on the John.
Now, you have been known to win the potty award.
Hey.
Well, let's back up, man.
I didn't have toilet paper. I needed your help that time.
So why did you start at the beginning, man? Start with because you were doing some stuff before you started nGen. So start way back at the beginning. What was your first industry job?
Well, so the industry didn't exist.
Well, yeah.
I got my first job.
But I mean, you first started working at a marketing company,
an advertising shop. Yeah. So I left Florida. It's so weird because I feel like everybody knows this, but to your point, there are a lot of new people. It's one of those stories. But I was a theater major. I was at UF. It was number one party school that year. I like to think I helped push it over the edge there. We had a lot of fun. But I realized coming out of school that theater was not going to be like
Mm,
a lucrative career. And it
mhm.
wasn't that I had achieved a certain status of living. I just didn't want to be broke. So I ended up in an advertising agency. All the theater training came in really handy because I was great at biz dev. I was great with clients because I was good at improv and because
Yeah.
I'd learned how to, basically memorize scripts and play off
A
of them
lot
and
of
stuff.
I've seen a lot of, like, sales coaches and stuff suggest improv.
They're all doing it now,
Yeah.
right? Like that's a thing that started about 5 years ago. I think Dan Pink, he had a book, To Sell is Human.
Mhm.
I think it might have been, but it started talking about improv, and then you've got like Jesse, who's got Improv Effect. Like, there's a lot of
Right.
great coaches out there and companies that are training. I mean, hell, Jesse's working with Netflix, training their executive staff how to be more vocal in an acceptable way, like how to speak so people can hear you.
That's
I obviously have
debatable.
not done this training. I'm words with good yes. Um, but yeah, so I ended up in advertising, and I wanted to be a writer, but I wasn't great. End up pretty much part of the executive team by the time I'm like 24,
Right.
but mainly because I clients liked me. And I would sit with the advertising team. I would sit with the art directors. I would sit with the writers and I'd say, why are you doing it this way? What are you doing? And then I would go and basically share that back with the client,
Mm.
and I could get approvals really fast. Like because I would lead with strategy. But then you get to the late 90s and the internet starts to happen. Now, before that, even, you have Macromedia
Yeah.
coming out with Director. You have Macromedia coming out with these other things because computers are getting more powerful,
Mhm.
right? And so we started doing that. And then I remember I went to Gary and Melanie, who owned the company, and I said, look, this internet thing is a new medium. This is in the late 90s. I think about this all the time. I'm like, we really need to offer this as a service. And they're like, well, we don't know anything about it. And I said, it can't be that hard. So there was a guy in town who was a great with tech. Get him on, and then but it gets to this point in 2002. So I started working there. God, I guess I started working there in 1990, and I was there, or 1989 actually. I started there, and then get in and start doing stuff and start working on web stuff, and landed a project with a company that ended up acquired by Comcast, which was just the simplest of websites. It was basically a programming guide,
Mm.
but it was more of I mean, it was manually updated. It wasn't any kind of database driven thing.
Well, yeah, nothing
And
was then
the
anyway.
artists were like, I don't know what to do. I said, just do simple icons just to represent whatever the content type is. And we'll just put out to the side and do this stuff. And we went up against this company in New York called Avalanche.
Mhm.
So Continental Cablevision was the company,
Yeah, I remember
and
Avalanche.
Avalanche was this huge flash
Yeah.
shop,
Yeah.
right? And so we charged Continental something like outrageous, like $10,000 to put together this website. There was a programming guide. Meanwhile, Avalanche is building this, and they're going crazy, building all this
Yeah.
animation, all this kind of stuff. And I remember that our client Mark, he all my past clients I call Mark now, but this guy's name really was Mark. And he basically called me like 3 weeks after we delivered the project. We didn't know about the other company. We didn't know that this was like we're going to hire two and see what happens. And read me the riot act about how we had ripped them off, about how what we did was crap, about what Avalanche did was just amazing, and that you sat there and you were just entertained while you were figuring everything out and all this kind of stuff. And then about a month later, he called and he apologized and asked for the source files because they tested it.
Mhm.
And our stuff was so simple that people just looked at it and they got done and they were able to accomplish things. They didn't know what to do when the Avalanche basically exploded.
Yeah.
When their site exploded on their computer, they had no idea where to click or what to
Right.
do, and things kept moving and they were getting distracted and it took forever. So that was kind of the beginning. And then Kelly Goto, who has Go-To Media, and has the first book, really, web
Mhm.
redesign workflow that works. We were at a Thunder Lizard conference. I told her that story. She said, "Can I put that story in my book?" And I was like, "Yes." And so then I start getting pulled into this web world.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get married in 2000. We got a kid on the way, right? In 2000, not right away. Well, kind of right away. We got pregnant on the honeymoon. But but then it's like, okay, I don't want to work here anymore at the place I was at because I just wasn't happy with the way it was going. And I had been asked to take over. It was about a 40-person shop. And I had watched the owner of that company miss her kids growing up.
Hmm.
And if I was there Wednesday at 5 a.m., if I came in, she was going to be there. If it was Sunday at 2 p.m., she was going to be there. And we were fighting all the time. I was really disgruntled. And then my wife, Kat, I had just put in a 100-hour week, do the math, right?
Mm-hmm.
I put in a 100-hour week to save jobs because we were going to have a layoff and we needed this one seafood restaurant chain. And I put in all this time. I did on the street interviews with people leaving the restaurant. I did all this kind of stuff to package this video to show them that we could promote whatever they wanted, but the problem was the product.
Mm.
And so went in and pitched that if they don't fix the product, nobody's going to promote it and save you. So we end up winning that. We go to the restaurant, which really was marginal. And Kat looks across the table at me and she goes, "Hey, I don't like you anymore."
Mm.
And I'm like, "What?" And you gotta realize she's like 9 months pregnant. And she's like, I love you. I do love you. But you're just so angry all the time and you're frustrated and you create these business models as a catharsis and you put them on the shelf. You need to pull one down and you need to start your own company. You
Mm.
need to leave the agency and start your own company. I never knew I could
Right.
until she told me that I had the ability to leave that job because I love that job. I love the people. I loved what I did. I just got frustrated when I got up high enough to see how the money was used. That became a super frustrating thing for me because we were having a layoff, but a lot of people were overcompensated. I was one of them. I gave some money back. It doesn't make me a hero. It just meant I wanted to protect where we were. And I guess I would have at that time, I would have been in my early 30s. I was okay, right?
Right.
So anyway, yeah, I go back. I tell Melanie, who was my boss, I said, "Hey, I figured out the whole thing while we're fighting all the time. And I think I got it figured out how we don't have to do that." And she goes, "Amazing. Let's go talk right now." And so we're sitting in my office, corner office overlooking the city, just beautiful. And she said, "What is it?" I said, "I don't work here anymore." And she goes, "Okay, you want to work from home? We can figure that out." And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "No,
You don't get it.
when I get a check, you won't sign it. It's not from you. I'm going to figure out my own thing." And she looked at me and she said, "I am so happy for you,
Mm.
but I'm also about to lose my shit. So
Mm-hmm.
you should probably just leave right now." And as I was walking out, she stood up and I was like, "Is she going to hit me?" But she just gave me
Right.
this hug. She just gave me this hug and I walked out and I started Engine Works. I had three friends, and one of the things I wanted to do was they each had great skills. One was amazing designer. One was an amazing breaker, like could break a site,
Oh, I got you.
could figure out what wasn't working. And then the other was a Flash guy. And he was also amazing at solving problems, like when things weren't looking right, working right, whatever. Um, so gave 14 weeks notice, which was 1 week for each year I was there, and was not allowed to say I was leaving until 2 weeks were left because they were trying to figure out how to handle it, which made
Mm-hmm.
it look like I just bailed.
Right.
And so that was painful. But yeah, so then we decided on Engine. And it was me and Bruce and Varick and Stockton. And we were all going to be compensated equally, which we did. It was not a lot of money. That was a big drop from that corner office down to doing your own thing. And I think the biggest thing that happened was I had lunch with Melanie maybe like 3 or 4 months later. nGen, we came out of the gate pretty hot. We landed. I signed a voluntary um, non-competition agreement, right? What do you call those things? Non-compete, a voluntary non-compete that I would not take any of their clients. Um, we got a call from Chase. Chase had not been a client of theirs, but they had pursued them, and I think that caused some rub. But they contacted us, and we came out of the gate with Chase as our first client. That was crazy. We were building basically flash stuff for their trade show booths.
Hmm.
But we got to say we built stuff for Chase, and that got us going. But even then, we never had that much money because we didn't know how to price anything.
Well, back up a little bit,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
if you're comfortable talking about it, because I think there's something there. So you did a voluntary non-compete,
yeah,
and then you wound up working with this company that your old company had pursued.
yeah.
So how did that go down? I mean,
So first of all, the voluntary non-compete sounds like I was doing a good thing. I was cocky. I actually was acting. It was
mhm,
ego
mhm,
saying, you know what? I don't need your clients
right,
because things had gotten it got a little tense
right,
during those 14 weeks. If you're ever leaving a long-term job, I do not recommend you give more than 4 weeks. It's
yeah,
just
that's
not going to be good for anybody. Um, but yeah, so then I, I want to say it was Varick who also had been at the agency and was leaving voluntarily for another reason. He was going to go back to animation school
so
because
they
he was
were
an
you were both
amazing animator.
you were both at the same place.
We were at the same place and we both left at the same time.
Mhm.
He was, yeah, I would have been upset with us too.
That's why I'm bringing it up because I mean
He
you're
was the
telling
most
the
talented designer they
right,
had.
right, right.
I was the head for the most part. I was the head of account service and media
Right, so
and
that was a big
the
hunk of that
internet.
company. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Wait. So it's like that Reddit thread. Wait. So I'm the dick. Um, but yeah.
No,
So we
it's just it's
left.
important. It's important to get that point across because,
No.
we are the bureau, so we wanna look at it from both
Oh
perspectives.
yeah, for sure. And I mean, and this happens, right? Like you get people, and this is part of people talk about all the time that they don't have a way for their best people to advance. There's
Right,
no upward mobility, right?
right,
Even if you're a flat organization, your long-term people need things to feel like they're progressing. It's about making advancement in your own life. So this was one of those things that when I got to a point that they asked me if I wanted to be president of the company and I realized I didn't,
right,
there was nowhere to go. And part of that was it was always going to be their company. I was going to be running somebody else's thing. And I wanted to
right.
take what I had learned and do something new. That's why I always did those business plans and put them up on the shelf. This would work. And that was my catharsis to get all of the negativity out. But yes, so to that point, we left, Varick and I left at the same time.
Mhm.
And we also did this thing I think was also probably just really cocky where we said it if you sign an agreement now, we'll help with all your stuff for $100 an hour.
Mm,
If you call us later, it's going to be 250. And they called us later. So it was like all of these things were, I'd given them 14 years of my life and they were 14 of the best years, 14 of the formative years. I would
right.
not be here with the Bureau right now if I had not been there with Melanie and Gary. They taught me just everything. Right. But so we get out. And it might have even been Stockton, I think, who had the connection at Chase because it wasn't going in the same door. It
Got
was a
you.
different department, but it was John Carr. I'll never forget this. John was this great guy, and he just contacted us and said, "Hey, I got this much money. We need this thing. Do y'all want to do it?" And I didn't know how to price anything really. I didn't know what it was going to take for us to do it. All I
Right.
knew is we didn't have production costs, so I thought it was all gravy. I really came out of the gate slow. I didn't really know what I was doing.
Mm.
But yeah, so we end up with Chase. we would we would end up we'd do anything. Like I think everybody knows this. Like we would do video editing. Anything anybody told us they had a dollar and a need, we were pretty much going to say yes. And I think that first year we had 38 clients,
Wow.
like some sort of crazy number. I'm trying to think. It fit on the back of a T-shirt we had where we did the clients' names and the dates like they were tour dates.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was crazy. And
So you'd
I
say it
wouldn't
went pretty
change it.
well. You went pretty well out the gate. I mean, if you open up with a client like Chase, I mean that
Yeah. No,
I think that's probably a very similar story to a lot of people that where they've built this company around this client, like sort of out of the gate, you know?
yeah, I think so. It kind of defines who you are really quickly.
Hmm.
Now, I'll also say this during those 14 weeks, where I'd given the 14 weeks before I was going to leave, we did some campaigns for nGen. And I think the one that was the most notorious, because I couldn't say I was leaving because I had promised not to, we did this like teaser campaign where we would call people we knew in the industry and ask if they had heard of nGenWorks, because we heard that they were some new interactive shop that was coming to town, and we were trying to figure out who they were because we didn't know if we'd want to work with them or not.
Right.
So I'm making like 3 or 4 of these phone calls a week. The other guys are doing some stuff too. And people would say, well, where are they? I said, I don't know. I heard they're in North Carolina, but they're coming to Jacksonville. And evidently they're really good at animation and they're good at all this kind of stuff. And then one day I got a call from somebody asking me if I had heard of nGenWorks.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I have. I think they're in North Carolina, right? Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. But I can't find anything on them. And then they're coming here. To this day, there are people who think that in Jacksonville, that nGen was originally in North Carolina and came here. And we
That's
just made
funny.
it up.
That's funny.
But that gave us, I think, a quick launch in terms
Hmm.
of getting the work.
Hmm.
But we didn't really know how to price the work. We didn't really know what things were going to take. And we came from advertising. So we were a fixed bid mindset,
Hmm.
right? Without the media to compensate.
Right.
Yeah.
So were you the first employee, or were you and Varick the first employees, or were you
It,
all sort of at the
all
same
4 of
time?
us started at the same time.
Okay.
We had time equity and money equity. So we would all leave at the same time for the most part every day, start for the most part the same time every day, and split the money 4 ways,
Hmm.
which wasn't great because they were all in their 20s. I was in my 30s.
Hmm.
They were all single. I had a kid. I had a
Hmm.
second kid by the time we ended up starting. So it really was stretching me thin. I also had a lot of savings. So I didn't even watch it wind down because I was having so much fun. Right. But then we did get into this point where I was started living on credit cards
Hmm.
because as busy as we weren't pricing it right. And I didn't have any business background. Again, theater major, right? Like I took an accounting class because you had to, but it's like none of that made sense. We had a lot of people who wanted, we got the reputation for kind of being like the bad boys of design. Not for, I mean, well, we did, we drank a lot, but it was more that we would just tell clients no all the time. We'd fire clients. It was like you really had to go the path that we laid out if we were
Hmm.
going to see this to the end. And the thing about it was there was so much work in those early days of the web. We started in 2003, June
Right.
2nd, 2003.
Wow.
Everybody was lined up. We once had a barbecue chain we were working with that was throughout the Southeast, and their competitor came to us and said, "We want to work with you as well." And in advertising, you don't work with 2 people in the same space,
Right. Right.
but in software, you do.
Hmm.
And so it's this weird thing because agencies, web shops started either from advertising agencies or from software developers. Like that's where it comes in. Software development, we bill weekly. Advertising, we bill milestones. So it's like this is how all this stuff starts, right? But what we told them was, if you can wait, we will be done with your biggest competitor site in 3 weeks, but you need to give us a deposit now. And then once we're done working with them, we can work with you. And they said, well, why do you have to wait? I said, because if we have a great idea, we don't want to decide who gets it.
Right.
And you'll be able to see what we did for them. And we are not going to replicate anything we did for them for you.
Right.
We will draw the line and we will start fresh. And it worked. And we had multiple real estate companies, multiple steak places, barbecue places. Yeah, all that stuff really worked. And we were really big and faith-based, which still cracks me up.
Hmm. Interesting. So what? We're just following some of his stuff here.
Yeah, yeah.
What would you think was your best advantage early on?
So we had first of all, we didn't have a boss. We had a list of rules that we had to follow, and if you broke 3 of the rules in 12 months, you were gone. That was kind of it. So we had this really clear understanding as a team
Mm.
that, for example, if you expose the company to a liability, that was a strike. If you didn't keep a commitment to a team member, that was a strike, right? If you missed a deliverable without renegotiating,
Oh, gotcha.
that was a strike. 3 strikes, you're out. It was
Hmm.
also known as the driver's license rule. So we had that, and somebody fell to it in the first
Wow.
3 months. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the thing what that I would say was big. But also we didn't really have a business plan, but we did have like we would make rules.
Big in
And
what way? Big. It was big in what way?
what do you mean?
You just said that you think the three strike rule and you're out was big.
I think it was big in that it kept us in line.
Got you.
We all knew it was expected. We all approved them. Nobody said these are the rules. Like I crafted most of them, but then they looked at them. I was kind of the
Yeah.
business owner. Varick was the product owner. Bruce was the quality owner, and Stockton was the guy who could make magic. Like
Mm.
he could do the animation. He could do all those things. So, but everybody got a voice in what we were going to do and how it was going to work. Um, but then I think the other part was we came from a service oriented company where a lot of the people who were starting up web shops were just people who knew how to build websites. And so they would take a deposit and disappear. Because really, it was a 50-50 world back then. You get a 50% deposit, the 50% upon completion, and just try to eat as little as you can in between,
Right.
right? Because it's going to stretch out. But the thing I think that helped us was in our rules for clients. The first one was we'll always answer the phone. And the second one was we'll always keep our word. And the third one was we'll always be nice. Right. Now we would tell them no, but we wouldn't be jerks about it. We would say, I appreciate you want to do that. That's a bad idea. We're not going to do that.
Mm.
So anyway, yeah, I think because we set up these predefined rules that we were going to follow, um, we never questioned what to do. Like we had it. I would even say we had core values.
Mm-hmm. It sounds
Although
like
I never heard that phrase before the Bureau. I
right.
never knew about core values or
Right.
mission and vision. We had a mantra, which was serious fun. We were going to be serious about everything we did, but if we weren't having fun, we weren't going to do it. Um, that was a great thing.
Mm.
And I remember getting interviewed by the newspaper pretty early on. Like we were maybe 2 or 3 months out of the gate, and the newspaper needed a digital partner. They needed somebody to help with that stuff. And they were asking about costs. And I said, just give us a few stories, get us in there. Cause I was always thinking the more awareness we can create,
Hmm.
the better off we're going to be.
You're not wrong.
And then I think the biggest thing that came out of that was basically just sharing that there are right ways and wrong ways to treat clients. That was something that one of the articles was around in the business section. And basically I just said, the client's not always right, but they're always important. And that's the line you have to walk. Are you
Very
going to let them
quotable.
hurt? Are you going to let them hurt themselves because they're about to create something that's not going to be usable?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense. And little things like that we would get dropped in the paper would
Mm.
lead a bunch of locals to us. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, there's a fine line between, you know, just doing what they ask because they're going to pay for it versus actually giving them some honest feedback and being that true consultant.
Well, that's it. And the web was so new. I remember there was this guy, Mike Morgan, who ran a shop called Morgan and Partners. And he was like a cigar smoking. He should have been a private detective in the 20s, right? Remember, he came up to me at a award show and he goes, Carl, I envy you. I envy you because you can make magic. We put stuff on paper. We put it onto nobody cares. You make magic. Make sure, and then he goes, make sure you're pricing appropriately.
He's not wrong.
And that day I went, oh shit.
Yeah.
We need to double our price. It's not that we're overworked, it's that we're not
Yeah.
billing properly. And
Yeah.
that was like 2 years in.
Mm-hmm. You're like, yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Well, we are at 30 minutes.
Wow.
Let's take a break and come back for part 2.
I like it. And again, I want to thank Hans for this. And Gene, thank you for being amicable to it. Now that I'm able to use my big words.
I don't even know what that word means.
Thanks for saying okay.
All right,
I appreciate it.
let's come back.
Gene,
Well,
I'm going to say something and I need you to say it back, okay? I love you.
oh, I love you too, man.
Aw,
It's
thanks, man.
fun. I was going to ask you if you had a hot take for this first part of your story.
You know what? That's a great question. I would say my hot take for this first part of the story is if you are listening to this and you're thinking about heading out and starting your own thing, if you've been somewhere else for a while and then you're gonna start up, number one, don't take yourself too seriously. Realize you're going to be fine. It's not make or break. Everything's not going to sink your company. And the other thing I would say is don't try not to create the place you left. Take the things that were good, the things that you learned. That was a valuable education, and there's no
Mm.
reason not to do that type of documentation or that
Mm.
type of process or that type of whatever. It's something that is ingrained in you. And if you try not to do it, you're going to hurt yourself and your team and your company.
That's some great advice, man. And I like your quote about the client is not always right, but they're always important. That's a good
Yeah,
one. That's a good one to take too.
there you go. Look at all this value thanks
Boom.
to Hans.
Boom,
Whoa.
boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom.
All right, man.
See ya.